Brenda Gordillo, an ambitious young woman from Catamarca, Argentina, could not have imagined that her first love would be the fateful train ride that would take her to the depths of pain. The story begins with a seemingly harmless love affair between two university students. But in just a few short months, that love turns into a terrible tragedy. A simple date on a late February night in 2019 was also the last time Brenda was seen alive. More than 24 hours later, her young boyfriend, Naim Vera, walked into the police station with his father and two lawyers, and his confession shocked the whole country. But let's go back to the beginning. Because before evil is revealed, it always wears a sweet cover. Brenda was born on May 16, 1995, the youngest daughter in a middle-class family of 3 children. She was close to her mother, Florencia, and was loved and protected by her 2 brothers, Ivan and Alan, since childhood. Being rational, gentle, and always trying to reconcile all conflicts, Brenda made her friends admire her maturity and kindness. It was no surprise that she chose to study psychology, specializing in negotiation and conflict resolution. After the sudden death of her father, Brenda returned to her hometown to be with her mother. Here, she enrolled in a law school, both to broaden her knowledge and to try her hand at a new environment. And then, fate led her to meet a young man named Naim Vera, born on June 11, 1999. Naim is the youngest child in a prestigious medical family in Catamarca. His father is a famous cardiologist. His mother runs a private pediatric clinic. But unlike his brilliant brother, Naim is a spoiled brat, lazy and arrogant. He was involved in drugs, bullied his friends and got away with it many times thanks to his family's power. His handsome appearance, confidence and wealth made many girls fall in love. And Brenda, although 4 years older than Naim, was no exception. The two met at a party, talked for hours, and that same night, they spent the night together at Naim's family apartment. After that, the relationship began. Brenda believed that she had found true love. She mentioned Naim in her conversations, showed his pictures to her mother and brother, and dreamed of a future together. But there was only one strange thing: Naim had never introduced Brenda to anyone in his family or friends. All meetings took place in his room, secretly. When asked, Brenda reassured herself that it was probably because of the age gap, or simply that he needed more time. She did not know that behind the sweet gestures was a cruel game. In mid-February 2019, Brenda discovered she was pregnant. She was shocked, but then overwhelmed with joy. For Brenda, the baby was a miracle. She had been told she would never be able to have children. It was also her last hope of holding on to Naim's heart. But his reaction was the complete opposite. He became angry, coldly declared that he was not ready to be a father, and offered to pay all the expenses if Brenda agreed to have an abortion. When she refused, saying that her health was poor and that the pregnancy was a miracle, he cut off contact. However, Brenda did not give up. She hoped that Naim would change. She told her best friend that she still loved him, that she still hoped to reunite. And then, on the evening of February 28, 2019, Naim texted, saying that he wanted to meet and talk one last time. Brenda was overjoyed, and went to his apartment after attending a classmate's birthday party. That was the last time anyone saw her. On the morning of March 1st, Brenda did not show up for class, something that had never happened before. Her phone was unreachable. Her family began to worry, and her friends called the police. While everyone was frantically searching, Naim walked into the police station and confessed a horrifying story. He said Brenda fell down the stairs during an argument, dying on the spot. Panicking, he burned the body in a barbecue in the yard, but failed. He then dismembered the body, hid it in trash bags and dumped it in 2 different locations, a dump and a deserted ravine. When the police found the rest of the body, all the lies quickly fell apart. Autopsy showed Brenda had not fallen. She showed no signs of trauma from falling down the stairs. No broken bones, no fractured skull. Instead, signs of mechanical asphyxiation. Her laryngeal cartilage was crushed. Fresh scratches on Naim's hands showed that the victim had struggled in desperation. Part of a scarf was stuffed deep into her mouth, evidence of an attempt to gag her before strangling her to death, and the most heartbreaking thing? Brenda was not pregnant. She was just mistaken, because her body showed signs of a missed period. An innocent illusion. Cost her her life when the fire failed to destroy the evidence. He chose to cut it into pieces on March 1, 2019, while relatives still believed that Brenda had simply missed her class. At the Catamarca police station, an unimaginable crime was unfolding. Naim Vera, 19, accompanied by his father and 2 lawyers, walked into the police station and confessed he had killed his ex-girlfriend, burned her body, and dumped her body in 2 different places. In his initial statement, he tried to paint an accident. He said Brenda fell down the stairs during an argument and died on the spot. Too scared, he burned the body to erase all traces. He did not mention feelings, nor did he admit to the relationship. He even called Brenda a girl who had slept with no strings attached. But the truth was not that simple. After causing the accident, as he put it, Naim dragged Brenda to the backyard, put her on the barbecue grill and doused her with flammable liquid. He lit it in the middle of the night. A neighbor who witnessed the scene, thinking he was grilling meat, waved back when he saw Naim smiling. The behavior was so cold it was chilling. When he realized that the body would not burn completely that way, Naim dragged the body into his house. He used a knife to cut the body in 2, put it in a trash bag, put it in a cardboard box, and drove away in the middle of the night. The lower half of the body, he threw it into a nearby public trash can. The upper part, including the torso and head, was thrown into a ravine by the roadside, covered with dirt and trash as if to hide a contraband. The story didn't end there. On the way back, a police car stopped because it saw his car parked on the side of the road. Naim appeared calm, saying that he had just had an argument with his girlfriend on the phone and went outside to calm down. The police believed him and let him go. When he returned home, he tried to clean up the scene, but could not remove all the blood, ash, and smell of burning flesh. In a panic, he called his cousin. At first, his cousin thought Naim was on drugs or hallucinating. But then, realizing something was wrong, he called Naim's father, and within hours the whole family decided, let him turn himself in. It seemed like a responsible move. But in reality, from the moment they entered the police station, everything was carefully calculated. They brought their own lawyers, tried to steer the story towards an accident, to reduce the punishment. But the truth always has a way of emerging. When the police found Brenda's body, even though it was burned and dismembered, the forensic examination exposed the whole lie. She had no signs of trauma from falling down the stairs, no fractures, no skull or neck injuries, most importantly, no fatal neck injuries as Naim had described. Instead, the forensic expert found signs of mechanical asphyxiation. The cartilage of the larynx had been crushed with bare hands. In Brenda's mouth, there were remnants of a scarf stuffed into her mouth to muffle her screams. Brenda had scratches and abrasions on her hands, indicating that she had fought back fiercely before she died. Naim also had fresh scratches on his hands, clear evidence of a struggle. This was no accident. This was a deliberate, cruel, and calculated murder. And there was one shocking detail: Brenda was not pregnant. This initially made the police suspect that Brenda was making it up to tie Naim down. But after a thorough investigation, they discovered a tragic truth: Brenda had been diagnosed with infertility since childhood, but recently she had missed her period and felt nauseous. She had a miraculous hope in her heart that maybe the doctors were wrong. She did not intentionally deceive, she simply believed that she was carrying a miracle. She only told 2 close friends. She had not had time to go to the doctor, and did not dare to tell her mother. For Brenda, it was the hope of being loved, of being attached to the person she loved. For Naim, it was a trap. And he chose to eliminate the problem. When asked about his relationship with Brenda, Naim denied any feelings. He said that the two of them had only sex, not dating. He had never loved her. Argentine law states that if the murder occurred in the context of a romantic relationship, the maximum sentence is life imprisonment. That is why the entire strategy of Naim and his lawyers was to prove that he and Brenda were not lovers. They presented evidence that no one had ever seen the two together. They did not post pictures of them together. There was no clear sign of a relationship. Meanwhile, Brenda's family and friends recounted. Brenda spoke of Naim with a twinkle in her eye. She showed off photos of him from social media. She believed he was her true love and would marry her. One friend even recalled Naim saying, "If she really is pregnant, I will kill her, or myself." But no one expected him to be telling the truth. During the entire time awaiting trial, Naim's family used all their influence to delay the trial. They tried to forget about it. But Florencia, Brenda's mother, wouldn't let that happen. She organized a series of protests, mobilized the media and feminist organizations to speak out. Women across Argentina took to the streets to demand justice for Brenda. In May 2021, after more than 2 years of relentless fighting by the victim's family and feminist activists, Naim Vera's trial officially began in Catamarca, Argentina. The courtroom was packed, not only by the media, residents, and Brenda's friends, but also by hundreds of strangers who had followed the case from day one. They came for one reason: to reclaim the victim's voice, and to fight against a justice that was manipulated by power. The defense's strategy remained the same: denying the romantic relationship, referring to it as a non-committal sexual encounter, thereby reducing the charge of murder with an emotional element, which is more serious under Argentine law. They described Brenda as someone who wanted to tie down a young, rich, handsome man, that she faked a pregnancy to force her into marriage, and that when she was rejected, an argument broke out that led to an accidental murder. Naim sat silently throughout the trial. He did not shed a tear, did not show any remorse. Even in his apology to Brenda's family, drafted by his lawyer, he wrote it in a cold, forced manner, which many felt was more an insult than an apology. However, the evidence gathered was too clear to deny. Security cameras showed Naim carrying the box containing the victim's body out of the apartment on the night of the murder. The autopsy results: no injuries consistent with a fall down the stairs, but mechanical asphyxiation due to manual strangulation. Brenda had a towel stuffed in her mouth, a sign of restraint, not an accident. Scratches on Naim's hands show that the victim tried to struggle before being killed. In particular, the psychological assessment conducted by the Forensic Medical Examiners Council stated, Naim was fully aware when committing the crime. He did not lose control or lose behavioral capacity, but he had borderline personality disorder, narcissistic psychological tendencies, controlling and severe lack of empathy. In other words, he knew very well what he was doing. When the case began its second trial, March 2022, a series of victims who had been threatened, abused, or sexually harassed by Naim came forward to testify. A former classmate said, after rejecting Naim's feelings, she was stalked, threatened, and spread false information by him. Another student even had to transfer schools after Naim tried to rape her, then spread personal photos and falsely accused her of being a promiscuous person. All these incidents were covered up by the power of Vera's family when his father hired a private lawyer to settle the case peacefully or threaten the victim. Now, those who were hurt have the opportunity to speak out and contribute to exposing a dangerous person disguised as a good student. On May 14, 2021, the court sentenced Naim Vera to the maximum sentence, life in prison, without the possibility of parole for at least 51 years. In addition, he was ordered to pay 3 million Argentine pesos in compensation to the victim's family as part of the psychological damage. In court, he kept a straight face, showing no emotion, as if the sentence had nothing to do with him. The defense attorneys immediately announced an appeal, but in March 2022, the appeals court upheld the entire sentence. Justice, finally, has called the killer by his name. If it weren't for Florencia, Brenda's mother, the case would have been buried like hundreds of other cases of violence against women that have occurred in Argentina. Immediately after her daughter's death, she refused to be silenced, refused to submit to the power of the Vera family. She stood up to organize marches, speak to the media, call for independent lawyers, and received support from feminist organizations across South America. #Justicia por Brenda, Justice for Brenda, became a campaign that spread across social media. Florencia didn't just fight for her daughter. She fought for the thousands of women who were disrespected, silenced, and killed simply because they dared to love the wrong person. Brenda Gordillo did not die in vain. Her story led to changes in safety policies for female students at many Argentine universities, prompted reform of the criminal law on sexual crimes, and sparked a movement against femicide. Many girls who had been abused bravely came forward to report their abusers after seeing Brenda's family get justice. The image of a young, gentle, happy girl who dreamed of becoming a psychologist lives on in the hearts of millions. And her story is a painful reminder that sometimes the scariest thing isn't a stranger, it's the person you once trusted the most. If this story resonates with you, please share it. For Brenda. For all the women who no longer have a voice.